Hey kids, it's Karen. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being patient with no uploads and really no updates last week. I have got a story time for you. Before we get into that, if you're new here, why don't you think about hitting subscribe down below? Click that little bell icon, it'll let you know every time I upload. Okay, let's get into this little chronic illness story. So, one of my conditions is called mast cell activation disorder, or MCAS for short. And what it basically is your mast cells are the mediators in your body that control all your allergic reactions, basically. If they sense something in your body they don't like, they degranulate or come apart and they release a lot of chemicals, one of which is histamine. Well, mine do that even when there's not a threat. So mine can degranulate because of something perceived, like probably why I can't eat gluten, sometimes with dairy, different other foods, but also any kind of smoke, even being around someone who was smoking previously, can cause a reaction. Extreme heat, extreme cold, dust in the room, anything that you can think of, my mast cells will degranulate, and I can potentially be allergic to anything in the universe. Okay. So there's a prequel. My allergist wanted me to get some blood work and urine analysis done to kind of confirm that that's what's going on, but also make sure there's nothing else going on with my mast cells. There are other mast cell diseases that you can have. So she ordered these tests back in June, but I didn't have insurance last year. So I basically was like, I can't get these right now. I will get them when I get insurance. And she said, okay, that's fine. Just whenever you have it, go ahead and get them done. And then we'll come back in and we'll evaluate what the testing says. No big deal. So I finally got insurance this year in January, but I've had other health things come up and other appointments and things I had to get done. And so I finally got around to setting up an appointment with LabCorp to get the blood work and everything done. So to do this blood work, I have to be off. Well, I had to do a 24-hour urine histamine test, which basically means you have to pee into a bucket and save it in your fridge for 24 hours, which is great fun. And to do that test, I had to be off of all of my antihistamines for 72 hours, so 3 days before I did that test. And then I had to stay off of the antihistamines to get the blood work done. So, week before last, on Thursday, that morning I did not take my antihistamines. Now I take an H1 blocker, which is Zyrtec, twice a day. So a 24-hour Zyrtec twice a day. So double dose of that. I take H2 blocker, histamine 2 blocker, which is Zantac, and I take double doses of that at bedtime every day. And then I take Allegra as needed, Sudafed as needed, and Benadryl is my rescue drug in case I have some sort of reaction in spite of all the other antihistamines. So, crazy lot of drugs that I could not take. I also had to be on a very strict diet before the pee test and avoid all NSAIDs like Advil and things. So I go off all of the drugs and immediately start feeling the effects because I need them, because I actually have this disorder. And I need those drugs to keep me healthy. And I almost immediately started getting sick. And I'm not just talking about you're having seasonal allergies sick. I'm talking about, yes, allergic reactions, but also like urticaria, which is your skin gets very flushed and red, and that can turn into hives. And I was having nausea. I was having migraines. I was weak, I was really tired, I was starting to have chronic pain, I was starting to have symptoms of my other conditions pop up because if one condition goes out of whack, they all start flaring. It was a rough week, to say the least. So all day on Sunday, I stay home this past Sunday, today is the next Sunday that I'm filming, and I pee in the bucket all day long. And I'm mostly in bed all day because I'm pretty miserable and I have a migraine I can't get rid of because I can't take Advil. And I'm just pretty miserable at this point. And I'm just looking forward to Monday so that I can go take them the urine, get my lab tests done, and get back on my medicine that I so obviously need because I'm so sick without it. And so Monday morning rolls around, I pack my pee in a cooler, and I go to the next town over, which is almost an hour away to get all the way over to the LabCorp building. It's about 45, 50 minutes. I get there, I sign in, and the lady calls me up and she's like, do you have your orders? And I'm like, well, the doctor's office didn't give me orders because this office doesn't give you paper orders for some reason. Most doctor's offices do. This is important later. But they didn't, and they had called them in back in June. And so I had this sheet of paper where it was saying which labs they were supposed to be. And I give it to her, and she's like, well, if they called these in June, we're probably not going to have them in the system anymore. And I'm like, what? Excuse me? And she was like, no, LabCorp kicks them out after 6 months. So you would have had to come in December. And I'm like, should the doctor's office have known this? And she's like, yeah, if they work with us a lot, they should know this. So I'm like, well, great. So she checks for them, and she's like, no, I'm sorry, they're just not in the system. They didn't give you any kind of paper orders to just bring into us. And I was like, no, they said they were just calling them in. And I know they were in there because I checked last year to find out how much they were. And when I found out they were $2,000 worth of lab tests, that's why I said, no, sorry, insurance has to be helping with this. So she's like, well, just call your doctor's office and have them fax them over. And I'm like, okay, great, I can do that. So I go and I look up the number for the doctor's office and I call him and I get a voice recording. And apparently my doctor's office is no longer open on Mondays. I never got an email or anything informing me that they were no longer open on Mondays. I mean, my next appointment is on a Tuesday, so I guess they wouldn't really need to tell me that. But it's just like, are you serious? Great. So I went up to the lady and I was like, looks like I'm going to have to come back tomorrow because they're not open on Mondays. And she was like, okay, that's fine. I was like, is this urine sample going to be okay? And she's like, yeah, just put it back in your fridge. It'll be fine for a couple days. And so I hop in my car. I went and did a little bit of pity shopping, even though I really wasn't feeling well. I just wanted to boost my spirits. Be able to like take a good Epsom salt soak bath. Epsom salt soak bath. It's a new term. We're coining it right now. Anyway, so I did a little bit of shopping. I grabbed some food to eat when I got home, and I went home. Oh, and all this is fasting too. So, I mean, I'm really hungry at this point. So I get the food and I get home, and I'm like, well, I'll just call in the morning. I'll talk to the doctor's office. So I get up the next morning. I get ready to go. I make my LabCorp appointment for like 10:30. So it'll be later in the day. And I call the doctor's office and I get voicemail again. I call them at 9, which is when they used to open. I call them at 9, and apparently now they don't open on Tuesdays until 10 o'clock a.m. Like what? Excuse me? So I talked to my mom and I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, my appointment's in 10:30 and it's 45 minutes away and I can't call them till 10. And she was like, well, I'll just go. Call them when you get there. Go a little early, call them when you get there, and then go over to your appointment. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I drive 45 minutes again, hungry, no less, because once again, I'm supposed to be fasting before these tests. And I get there, and as soon as about 10:05 hits, I give them time to get in the office. I call up, and I talk to the lady on the phone, and she's like, oh yeah, sure, we can fax those over. And she takes the number, and it's all fine. And then I wait till 10:30, and I go into LabCorp, and I sign in, and the lady's like, okay, well, did you call and tell them to fax? And I said, yeah, they said they would fax them. Have they not sent them over yet? And she's like, no, but it could take time. And I'm like, that's fine, I can wait. So I wait around till about 11:15, and the lady's like, they still haven't texted, or faxed them, texted. I can talk. They still haven't faxed them over. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just call her back. And so I called the lady back, and she's kind of like, well, it's just going to take a little time, and I still need to talk to the nurse, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, fine. And so I wait another like half an hour, and it's cutting it close here. I go to work at 1 o'clock every day. I only work part-time, but I have to be at work at 1 o'clock, and I'm an hour away from work. So I wait another like half an hour, and I call back, And she's like, listen, it's just going to take some time. And I was like, well, I don't have a lot of time. I have to go to work, and I've already been here for like an hour or 2 hours or what. I've already been here for a long time. And I called you right when you opened. And so she puts me on hold for forever. And she goes and talks to the nurse. And then they get on the phone, and they're like, well, we can fax them, but if they don't accept these orders, then you're going to have to set up another appointment anyway, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Just a bunch of garbage, basically. And I was like, that's fine. I already have an appointment in 2 weeks. Like, that's fine, but can you just fax the orders over? I need to get to work. And she's like, yeah, we'll do it. And so I wait another like 30 minutes, like to the line of when I can leave. And nothing. They never faxed them. And I go home again. Because what else am I supposed to do? I have to go to work. So I go home and I go to work. I do my thing. So the next morning, I don't make another LabCorp appointment. I have the LabCorp's number, and I call them in the morning, and I'm like, hey, I had to leave a message. Nobody answered. And I'm like, hey, did they ever send my stuff over? I call the doctor's office and leave a message and say, hey, did you ever send my stuff over? And I hear back from no one. And granted, this is a Wednesday. I had been off my medication since the last Thursday. I am sick, I am exhausted, and I am done. And so I did not go back. I put my pee down the toilet where it belongs. And when I go back to my doctor's office, I'm going to tell her what happened and be like, look, this is proof that I have what we think I have because I was so sick off the medicine. I took that medicine Wednesday morning as soon as nobody ever called me back. And I made the decision that I wasn't going in. And I am so much better at this point. By the next day, by Thursday, was already so much better. It was like miraculous. I need this medicine. This medicine keeps me functioning. It helps keep this condition at bay so that my other conditions are at bay. And I'm not going off of it again. I'm not doing the labs. And you know what? It's my body, and I can make that decision. These are not prescription drugs. These are over the counter. And I'm done. I'm done. And I'm going to talk to the doctor when I go in to see her and let her know that her office never sent those orders over, and that's why I never got the testing done, and that I'm not going off medicine again to do the testing. Let me tell you guys something. Your doctors work for you. It's not the other way around. You need doctors you can trust, and you need to be able to take them at their word and know that they are careful in hiring their staff and are careful with you and your health care, are not just in it for money. Your doctors work for you. You get a say in what is going on in your body. So when I say that I'm not taking those tests, I'm not taking them. And she can do with that what she will. But it is obvious we've done the testing. I've been off the medicine for a week, and I was so ill and so reactive that Monday evening when I came home and I took my nice hot bath with my Epsom salts, I tried to do a face mask that I have done multiple times before. The second it touched my skin was on fire because my mast cells were out of control and reacting to everything, even things that they have not reacted to before. So that is proof that my medicine does what my medicine is supposed to do and that I should be on it. And I'm not going back off of it just to take blood tests to tell me the same thing. And I've done more research on these blood tests, and they're only accurate about 50% of the time. And they are false negatives all the time, and it doesn't mean you don't have this disorder. It just means that they're false negatives. So, I am done. That's my story time about making myself very ill to try to do a medical test that is not necessarily that necessary to my life. So, I will not be doing it again. Anyway, if you stuck around this long through my little ranty rant, thank you very much. If you've had any situations where your doctor's office or other medical professionals have failed you, please tell your story in the comments down below. I'd love to hear and talk to you about that. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please do. It would really make me happy. Anyway, I love you kids, and be good, and I will see you next time. Love you. Bye.